in an old story, mythologies have and will continue to shape our understanding of the past, future, and ourselves. Tiffany will present a story from Grecian mythology, not the one that does your hair differently. This is Grecian mythology called Hercules' Fifth Labor. Tiffany, please.
Good people, gather round and I will tell you the story of Hercules and his fifth labor. After vanquishing the Nemean lion and conquering the serpent with 9 heads, Hercules returned to Eurysthenes for his 5th task. And Eurysthenes said, "O Hercules, your 5th task, less noble, degrading, is this. You will travel to the court of King Augeas in the city of Elis, and you will clean the Augean stables. When the sun first crests over the sea to the east, you will begin, and your task must be completed before the last red ray of light diminishes." And so Hercules traveled to the court of King Augeas, and he presented himself before the king and offered up his services for a price. He wagered his skill and his day against 1/10 of this king's herds. Now, good people, friends, you must understand, as all in Greece did at this time, that King Augeas' herds, 3,000 in number, cows, calves, bulls, were an immortal gift from Mount Olympus. They never died. They were stabled in one great long row. That during the entire reign of King Augeas, 30 years had passed, and those stables had never been cleaned. And so he presented himself to the court with this task, and King Augeas stroked his beard, and being a wise and crafty man, and a wise ruler, immediately accepted. And that night a feast was held in Hercules' honor, and all the nobles of the court drank his health and smirked into their wine goblets. For what man, mighty though he might be, could rid that giant stables of the filth of 30 years? And the next day came, and before any light dawned, Hercules and Phyleus, the crown prince of Elis, went out to the stables. Hercules pulled open the door. The stench hit him. It was even darker inside than it was before the sun rose outside, but he could sense the shifting, the movements of the 3,000 immortal beasts inside, and their hooves against the reeking floor and brushing the rotting straw. And he could smell and feel and hear the hordes of the black flies buzzing around in the space, and the stench that reeked up to the vaulted ceilings and even burst through to wrinkle the nose of the gods on Olympus. Then the first rays of dawn and the mighty orb of the sun, the golden orb, came across the horizon and cast King Augeas' ships in sharp relief. And then Hercules opened both the doors and let the light in. And then he went and traveled around to the other end of the stables, and the crown prince Phyleus watched in wonder as Hercules picked up his club and a great axe and hacked a hole in the other end of the stables. And then Phyleus watched in amazement as Hercules picked up one rusty shovel in each hand, but instead of attacking the mounds of reek and dung, left, disappeared. And Phyleus went and stood on a hilltop on one side of the stable and looked around, and he could see the ships leaving the ports. He could see the little boys running off to school and to play. The marketplace was busy and buzzing, and the scullery maids were bringing in the last milk of the morning. And still Hercules did not return. The golden sun rose in the sky, And the merchants shouted out their wares in the streets, and the weavers flung their shuttles back and forth, and still Hercules did not return. And there the sun was at its zenith, and Phoebus in his golden chariot began arcing towards the west. But still Hercules was nowhere to be seen. Phyleus sat on that hilltop all afternoon. Later he heard soldiers coming back, his father's soldiers coming back from maneuvers, and he saw ships coming back in before the court closed for the evening. And Hercules was... Then he heard a sound that then became louder and louder, and then he saw a large man, but a small man from the distance running through the ravine. It was Hercules running back, a shovel in each hand, and behind him a great greenish-brown serpent, but not a serpent, for it filled the whole ravine. Not a serpent. It was the green of the Tigris and the brown of the Euphrates as the two rivers collided into the ravine and swept across the valley towards the great stables. And Hercules leapt up onto a hill beside the stables as the mighty torrent rushed behind him, catching up to and slamming into the wall of the stables through that great gaping hole that he had chopped so many hours before. And the torrent rushed, and Phyleus covered his ears to cover the sounds of those immortal beasts bellowing in their prison, but immortal they were. And the waters rushed, and they raged, and they frothed, and they fumed, and they ran through that stable of 3,000 beasts and rushed out the other side, and cleaned, and scourged, and swept on their way. And Phyleus looked at the hill across the stables to see what Hercules' reaction was, but Hercules was nowhere to be seen. And so Phyleus sat on his hill and watched the rushing waters continue as the two great rivers continued in their cleaning efforts. And then the two rivers lessened, quieted, and became a loud and noisy brook, and then a quiet and gurgling stream, and then just a trickle. And as that last trickle made its way through the valley, and the sun was setting behind the hills to the west, and the last few golden rays were turning red, Hercules followed that trickle towards the stables. And he put his hand on Phyleus' shoulder and shovel over the other shoulder. Looked at the stables, completely clean. The immortal cows, also clean. And the plain on the other side of the stables, that was now and forever would be the most fertile piece of land Greece had ever known. And that, my friends, is the story of Hercules and his fifth labor.